What is going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to yet another video. My name is Anthony Pinto da Costa, and you are watching the Canadian Physio Studio. All right, people. So I'm back again with another video interview, and today's video interview is all about the University of Saskatchewan's physiotherapy program, which I will be discussing with the one and only, the man himself, Enzo Yutuc. Enzo, how's it going today?
Hey, not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Just taking this whole COVID thing in stride, you know?
Yeah. It's been an interesting 3-4 months now, but
Yeah.
I think everything's really unpredictable, but we're getting through it.
We're getting through it, man. We're getting through it. So yeah, thanks again for coming on. You know, I found that over the past couple of years of doing this platform, it's been pretty Ontario-centric in terms of getting some insight into other programs in Canada. So I wanted to kind of expand my reach a little bit, you know, go outside of the province and discuss some of the other programs. So appreciate you coming on and discussing the U of S program.
I appreciate it. Nobody really knows where Saskatchewan is, so it's a good thing that we get to do this.
Putting them on the map, man. Put them on the map.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so do you want to just give the people a brief introduction about who you are, where you're from, education level, all that, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So again, my name is Enzo Yutuc. I am first year entering second year now, physical therapy student at University of Saskatchewan. My education background in my bachelor's, I did my bachelor's in physiology, and
Where'd you do your bachelor's, at U of S too?
Yeah, I did at U of S as well. So I actually was born in the Philippines, but then I moved here around 12 years ago.
Solid.
So born in the Philippines, raised in Saskatoon.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll just jump right into it. I'll ask the first question here. I know this is a broad one, but how has your experience been so far at the physiotherapy program at U of S?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's been really great. Just because of the whole COVID thing, it's been such an up and down roller coaster. You know, especially right now, everything is so unpredictable in terms of our future. And I know we'll get to this later. It's been a crazy ride. It's a lot of good experiences. Really, really love the faculty. They've been really such good people and mentors, not only as students, but also just people, which has been such a great experience. And just having the camaraderie with our classmates, not really competing for anything anymore, but it's just helping each other out, you know, going through the ups and downs. And how it is, how extensive the program is. And it's really good to have that really sense of community. And I think that's one of the biggest highlights I would say that I've been going through now in physical therapy school. Yeah,
man. And like, it's good to, finally be in school and learning things that you can apply right away as soon as you're out, right? Because like, you know, in undergrad, you're just kind of going through the motions. You're trying to get good grades, things like that, just to get to physio school. So awesome, man. All right. So next question I got for you is, can you just provide a brief overview of the program?
Yeah. So like most university, I think majority of the schools in Canada, it's a master's program. So you would need a bachelor's in order to apply for the grad program in the U of S. Out of the 11 or 12 months we are in school, so we only get a month break, which is very extensive and can be stressful at times. And within the 11 to 12 months, we are going through 10 modules of various lengths. So one can be shorter, one can be longer. It really just depends on how the scheduling is. Every year they change it. Right now, they are currently going through some changes, especially because of COVID. And within the program, there's also clinical placements. We used to actually have it, I'm not sure how it is in other schools, a research project that is mandatory. Not until recently, I think we were the first cohort, or I think second cohort now, where it actually isn't a mandatory thing in order for us to get our degree. However, there is an option, such as me, where you could apply and do a research project under a supervisor, and you can have full hand experience of research skills and whatnot, in addition to your academics and also your clinical placements.
Nice. So
that's in total, that's around 2 years and 6 weeks, I believe.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And how long are the placements? Do those vary too?
Yeah, so those vary too. Especially now with COVID, it's so different, especially with our cohort and the next year's cohort.
Yeah.
But normally, typically, you would have around 4 weeks of placements for your first 2 or 3, and then you would have a big one, which is around four, I think, 4 months of a placement, and then you finish off with another 4 week placement.
Gotcha.
But like I said, now it's really up in the air because so for example, for me, I've missed already one placement, and I'm also going to be missing my next placement this upcoming October. So which completely sets us back like basically a whole year.
Yeah.
Because from what we're listening now, and we'll get to this as a preface, they're basically just adding those hours later on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see the catch up of all this because like they can have all the plans in the world at all the schools, but are they really going to come to fruition? We're just going to wait and see.
Right, and everything's up in the air, especially what happens by September, right?
Yeah.
Because, once they have the good get-go of having the amount of capacity of students being in placements, or like if the hospitals or clinics are willing to get students, and that's one of the hardest things as well.
Yeah.
And it's just really all up in the air. But our faculty has been really great. They've been interacting with us in a constant basis and updating us on what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, that's solid. You need that support right now, especially from the people up top.
Yeah.
That's good. So on the topic of placements, my next question for you is where have you been on placement so far?
Yeah, so as a first year student, we didn't really. The very first placement I was in a rural placement, which is very, very eye opening. I was one of the common people who've always thought that physios are just very private focused clinic related, and I did a rural placement, which is also a hospital setting, and you would actually see how there's so much variety of physio can do, not only in treating patients, but also just advocating for them in their functionality, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, in that placement, we didn't really get to do anything just because we didn't really have any form of education or background in what we could do. So it was mostly just a shadow placement. And that's, unfortunately, that's majority of my experience in placements. Just because, so around March, like I said earlier, we were supposed to go to our very first, mostly hands-on placement, and then following on this October where we're supposed to go, but that's going to be canceled as well. So it's going to be really interesting for our cohort to be, taking a lot of theory and applying that next year, starting January, hopefully with our placements. So.
Yeah. So when you started that placement, how early was that? So you started in September, the program, right? And then how early?
We started August.
You started August,
around,
okay.
Mid-August, yeah. And so we went first 2 weeks.
Oh, nice. That's how you get your feet wet.
So it's very, very, very interesting. So they just throw us out already for I think it was 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks, something like that. Can't really remember.
Yeah,
it's not a long time ago, but
yeah. You know what? I kind of like that, just throwing you guys in right away, because what you see out there will be in your head, it'll be in the forefront of your mind when you're learning some of the concepts after, and then you'll be you learn something in class, you'll be like, oh, okay, I can see how this applies, and then the next time you guys are out, you'll be a lot better at it. Whereas if it's just didactic and you're learning anatomy, you're learning phys, you're learning all special tests, things like that, you'll get out and it's good that you have that base because you need that. But it's not the same thing when you have that exposure first,
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point that you mentioned that too, is because now that I'm reflecting on it, there would be constant times where I would kind of relate back to that, just those 2 weeks of placement where I was oh, okay, I remember when my CI at that time talked about this. And I understand why now. Even if it's just an anatomy or if it's just a biomechanics class or whatever, right? That's a really good point, actually. It's really good.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. That's how the whole learning process happens. You'll find when you do go on those placements, then in the next time you go in class, you'll be oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. Can't wait to get out and actually apply this again. Okay. My next question here for you is, I know this is a complicated one, especially if you don't know about some of the other programs, but what
Right.
makes U of S PT different from some of the other programs? So I know I was talking
Yeah.
about this with you earlier, in that, for example, in Ontario, like all the schools kind of have their own identity. Like Western's like the ortho school, Queens is like the generalist school, U of T has the great hospital placements, Mac is more of like the problem based learning. So
Right.
what's like U of S's version of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, a little of a hard question too.
Yeah.
But I think personally, from what I've experienced, one of the biggest things that I could think of that our college or our university really advocates for is advocating for the indigenous community. So one of the biggest issues, and I'm sure other provinces can attest to this, is remote access and remote access for health and for physios, for sure. So that's one of the things that is very prominent in our program, is educating ourselves and the reconciliation, just educating us in terms of the need of healthcare in rural populations, and also just helping us understand the importance and the need of like how we should be working, investing our time in there. So that's one of the greatest things I could say about the university. Another thing too that the U of S, or at our college specifically, really advocates for is interprofessional education. So just, not just mingling with other health fields, or if it's medicine, nursing, or whatnot, but just intentionally putting us together in different days where we have times where we just assess a case or whatnot. And I think reflecting back now, it's one of the things that actually helps us in our future placements, whether we're working in the hospital or even in the clinic. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the greatest things I could say about the U of S as well. And also, lastly, too, is just because we are such a small university, that we only get 40 people. And within the 40 people in our class, there's 6 spots for Aboriginal students. And yeah, just because of the small class size, the sense of community and camaraderie and family is just really there right off the get go. So in the beginning of the program, we have this thing called the plunge, which is basically a whole, I think it's a month, where we learn about physio, but we also build rapport and just a sense of community within each other, doing plays randomly in our
Yeah.
master's program or whatnot. And at first, it was like really weird, but looking back now, we all enjoyed it, and we are closer friends because of it, and we trust each other not just as friends but also as professionals because of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the greatest things I would say about the U of S program in PT school here.
I like that, man. Those are all great qualities. Like especially learning about indigenous communities. Like I think there's not enough about that.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
think we definitely need to learn and be more aware of that as well. And then even just talking about rural health, like I think I was telling you about this earlier. My rural placement at a hospital was easily the most valuable placement I had throughout PT school, because you can attest
right,
to this too. You see everything, right?
yeah,
Like if you're on an acute general med surge floor, like you can see any different condition, right? So you always got to be ready.
yeah,
You got to be adaptable, right? As opposed to,
right,
if you're in a big city and you go to a hospital, maybe there's a whole floor that's just dedicated to stroke patients, right? So you get really good at dealing with stroke patients, but there's a whole other aspect of physio that you're missing out on. And
yeah,
rural
for
is
sure,
amazing for that, right? So
yeah.
that's great, man. That's great. All right, so I know you alluded to this earlier too, but my next question for you here is, how has U of SPT program responded to the whole COVID-19 pandemic, that thing that's taken over our lives right now?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. I honestly, personally, I have to say, like, I think our faculty and our college has been doing such a good job. I don't think anybody's prepared for something like this, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has a backup plan, and I'm sure that everybody else can attest to this in other different schools, is that this is a learning curve and a process for each and every one of us, students and faculty. But they've been really intentional in communicating with us, whether it's just always sending us email in terms of updates, or having a big Zoom meeting with everybody else, in terms of what the expectations are, what they're doing, and it's always been transparent, which is very good. And then one of the greatest things that I like about our college as well is that they really take to account student feedback. Not just going to what they believe is the right thing to do, but also asking us our 2 cents and how it affects us and what they can do to help us, go through whatever we're going through, especially in COVID, especially with COVID. So I guess the more technical aspects in terms of what they're doing, as I kind of prefaced earlier, in terms of our placements, because we are behind, they've pretty much transferred those hours of that placement in our future placement in January.
Gotcha.
And what they're going to do is that they're just within, let's say, the 4 weeks, maybe the first week is going to, like, the expectation of how they're marking us is going to be different in comparison to the second week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how they're formatting it as well. I guess also secondly, because of COVID, we weren't able to do our OSCE, and we needed to do our OSCE before going to our next clinical placements.
Mm-hmm.
So the proposed plan of what they're doing is, once we are able to go into the university and have our in-class sessions, then the plan is that we're going to have a 1-week boot camp to prep us for that big OSCE exam, and in order for us to take it, so that we can be prepared for our next for our next placement.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, so like I kind of mentioned earlier, the courses composes of different modules.
Mm-hmm.
So for this fall, we have mod 4 and 5. What they're going to do is that they're actually going to combine those two mods and have this really long, kind of like this semester, I guess is kind of how you want to say it, or a module, where they're going to combine a lot of like clinical aspects and also theory at the same time. Because right now we are doing some online classes, but nothing can be assessed or tested up until around that time.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like where they're at in terms of managing our cohort, because one of the greatest priorities, I believe, or how I see, is getting the second years or third years now out, because they've been stopped during their clinicals, and their hours are needed in order for them to practice, or in order to get licensed, right? So, and because of COVID, they can't really put us out into placements as well, because one, we don't have our OSCE, also two, there's not going to be enough people taking us in anyways. So we want to kind of like flush out the third years so that we can also bring in the next first year's cohort in as well.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, and I'm sure things might be changing.
Yeah.
And but they've been really good, and I think I would really say that we're very privileged to have the faculty that we have now, and they're working really hard to help not just our cohort, but every single cohort that's studying now, and also who's coming too. So
yeah, no, that's a really good overview, man. And I'm curious, so like, regardless that all these plans are in place, what's kind of like the feel with your class, and in terms of concerns about not having exposure to these hands-on skills and picking those up? Like, have people expressed a lot of those concerns?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I, like myself included, and a lot of like my buddies too in our class, were very worried, just because like the amount of money and the time that we're spending too is is it even worth it, right? There's the issue of finishing in time, because a lot of people have future plans. Okay, like it's a 2-year program, and I want to be able to do this by then,
Mm-hmm.
but also at the same time not compromising our competency.
Yeah.
Right? So and it's such a conflict of like an ethical dilemma, I guess is how you want to say it, right? But a lot of people have like brought it out in terms of like, okay, like we are learning this book wise, theory wise, but like when are we going to get to do our hands-on practice with, because as physios we are very hands-on. I know that.
Yeah.
So and I think for me too, that's kind of like where I'm uncertain and kind of scared too. But it's really good, because they've been giving us a lot of resources and how we can still keep up to date. And in all honesty, like thanks to your YouTube page, I'm keeping updated and
Nice.
whatnot. But yeah, so like it is a big concern that a lot of people are going through right now, for sure.
Yeah, I hear that, man. Because I'm thinking about it. It's like, I'm trying to put myself in your guys' shoes, and it's like, how do you read about doing goniometry? How do you read about guarding a
Yeah.
patient during ambulation? How do you read about doing MMT?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta get in there and do that stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I just hope the best for you guys, and I hope you can
Yeah.
get out there soon, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot of like just personal, like, your own personal motivation of like what you do in order to keep yourself in there. I'm kind of lucky enough just because I am doing research, so a lot of things that I'm diving into in terms of being evidence based. That's kind of one of the skills that I've been practicing on, is how I can read evidence based literature and how I can apply that to the practice later on once I like do my placements, or once I do like my practice and whatnot, right? But there's only so much you can do,
Yeah.
right? Up until you actually do the manual stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's
solid that
interesting
you're
for
doing all
sure.
that, man. And like, again, to reassure you, like, that's great that you're doing all the things about evidence-based practice, because
Yeah,
some people tend to negate that and they tend to work like
yeah,
very hard on the clinical skills, which is great. You need to be able to do
right,
all that, but those will come. Like, I just want to reassure you, once you start
yeah,
getting into it, they're gonna come, and you're gonna be good with it. But
yeah,
your ability to appraise the research, like, that's gonna come in
yeah, for
handy
sure.
too. Sweet, man. You got a good head on your shoulders, so you're good. All right. Last question here. This is apart from, U of S PT program. I think we did a good job of covering that. So my last question here is just any last general words or pieces of advice for any future PT students in Canada. And it can be anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things, I think this is also an advice that I also gave myself, or I'm still going through, is
Mm-hmm.
keep an open mind. Like, one of the greatest things about the physio profession is that it is very diverse. There is a lot of scope, and we all have our own biases going in. I could say, like, even in my class and even myself, you kind of have like, you choose that you kind of see like the different people, or people kind of bring themselves like, okay, I'm like that person is sports physio, or
Yeah.
that person is an ortho, or that person is acute, or whatever, right? Or neuro and whatnot, right? And I think one of the greatest things that I would give, that I've also got to learn, that I'm still learning, is just having an open mind, taking everything in, because the reality is that all different aspects of physio come together at any point, right?
Yep.
That's one of the greatest things about the profession, because we are so holistic in our profession, in our scope. And it's just keep an open mind and like take the placements as it is and get the best that you can do, and at the end you can decide where you see you want to be, because that could also change even when you're practicing. And I know, like, even for you, kind of mentioned that too, right? Talking about how you're 100% private, and you might still are, but there's a part of you still loves like the acute aspect of physio,
Yeah.
right? So I think that for me, that's one of the greatest advice that I gave myself, because I'm still going through it. I always thought, oh, I'm going to be this this like neuro rehab, whatever.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, you know what? Ortho's actually pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, but you could, so that's one of the that's one of the things that I would probably say to physio. And also at the same time, just because it is extensive in terms of the program, have fun. One of the things that our college always advocates for is your own personal time, and whatever things that you enjoy, keep doing it, because that's what's going to make you go through life, right? Is the happier things, not necessarily the stressful things, right? Not the
Yeah.
awesomeness, but even though that's important in terms of your
Yeah.
competency. But we can have another conversation about
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I love all that, man. I love all that. And like what you explained about keeping an open mind, like, I preach that, man, because I'm
Yeah,
living it right now, like, I'm in acute care, and I've seen how acute care has helped me in private practice. I've seen how private practice
yeah,
has helped me in acute care. Like, they're very interconnected. Of course, they're completely different areas of practice, but the skills that you gain in both of them can be applied to both settings. So 100%. And then again, like you're saying about maintaining that work-life balance, like, if you're not able to do that in PT school, it's going to be hard to do that out in work,
yeah,
because it's a lot less stressful. PT school is already stressful, but work
yeah,
life,
yeah,
there's a lot of uncertainty out there, so make sure
yeah,
you keep up that work-life balance. Awesome, man.
yeah.
Any other things that you want to say, or is that pretty good?
I think that's pretty good. I would just say give this guy a like, subscribe to his channel. Like, the reason why I'm here now is also because of him. Like,
Sweet.
so
I
yeah,
appreciate that, man. I appreciate
yeah,
that. All right, guys. So if you like this video, I know I don't have to say it because he just said it, but I'll say it anyways. Make sure to like, share, and of course, smash that subscribe button. If you have any comments or questions, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you don't want to do that, you can reach out to me on my Instagram at CDN Physio Student, and we can go from there. And then if you want to also jump in on some of the comments down below, if there are any, go for it, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Go for it. All right, guys. So I will see you at the next video.
Yeah. Another day, another dollar to be made. I'm a workaholic, ballin' hard until the grave. Used to wanna be a baller for the NBA, till the fellas around me started dunking in the 7th